It is astonishing. It's ridiculously brilliant, quite how supportive the startup community is. I mean, look at what you're doing, Dan. Like, how far you've come in the last few years. Like, the amount people are so open. Like, I mean, I'm telling all my secrets today, but like, people are just really, really trying to help each other.
So I read somewhere where you said linking purpose with exit and valuation. Talk to me about that, because in my head there's a dichotomy, those things. And I think there's a lot of waffle about people saying that they want to not exit their business and build a brand, but like, let's just cut the bullshit. Like, everyone wants an exit at some point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that was at the Bread and Jam Investor Festival last week. And
Right.
I suppose I had two really simple points to make. One of which is the importance of purpose. And secondly, how actually, if you do run your business the right way, with an eye to exit valuation at the end, that actually helps you deliver your purpose, because you need a well-run business in order to deliver your purpose. And I used a couple of examples, and I think we are one. I'll talk about us in a mo. I think Pip and Nut, what she's doing, not only how she's always run the business, but now with the foundation, etc. It's fantastic. So I suppose that we talk about purpose. And by the way, maybe I should just, here's one of my subtle packs, Dan. But for people who don't know us, then here we are, Bio&Me. We do granolas and kefirs. The key thing about us is my co-founder, Dr. Megan Rossi. She's the gut health doctor. So if we're talking about purpose, she gives us our purpose. When I first met Megan 6-7 years ago, she's one of, if not the leading expert on gut health in the country. So our purpose was always there from the get-go. And I think it's one of our kind of not secret advantages, if you like, is we've always known what gets us out of bed in the morning. We've always known what we would never compromise on. It's lovely, Dan. The team's up to about 18 people now, and they join because they want to work on a gut health brand. There's no confusion about it. Megan still designs all the products herself, still does the social media, etc. What really, really gets her going is gut health education. So the fact that right now, I mean, we've been at this for 5-6 years. Gut health fibers really having a moment now. It's fantastic. If we're just talking about weight loss, etc., the fact that fibers like the natural GLP-1, etc. It's all coming through now is just wonderful. So we've always had that purpose, and it drives us. And honestly, it gets me out of bed, and I flipping love it. And we've got to run our business profitably. So if it was 3-4 years ago, Dan, when we last spoke, we were probably at about, I don't know, 2 million turnover, maybe 3. We're now, our run rate, so to use a lovely phrase, our quarterly annualized run rate is now at about 20 million. So we've just sort of got up to that mark. So
when you say run rate 20 million, that means you got 20 mil. What does that mean?
So the last quarter, the last 3 months, if you just extrapolated that out over a year, it'd be 20 million. So that's what so I think...
So that basically means that's how much dough you've got left until you run out, essentially.
No. So if you look at our annual sales last year, they were about sort of 13-14 million. But we left the last quarter, we exited at a 20 million run rate. Because what you want to see is quarter on quarter growth. So you grow throughout the year. So we did about 13-14 million sales total last year, and we exited quarter 4 at a 20 million run rate. So,
when you say exited, like not exited the business, just left that, finished.
No. Just no. Now we crack on with quarter 1 this year, and so sales are really good, and that links back to the purpose, So if our whole raison d'etre is to be the very best for gut health, so long as you've got the right trend, and it's wonderful seeing gut health have its moment now, hopefully, that gives you your sales. But obviously, then you've got to run the business the right way. I think with the team, it's just so important. If I've learned one thing in the last few years is, I mean, again, Dan, when we last met, I probably knew every fact in the business, sales rate for every customer, the cost of every product. I was still doing the consumer emails myself. I'd done every job in the business. Now I sort of get a little bit pleased about how much I've forgotten. And when people ask me questions and I don't know the answer, I rather like it because it means somebody else in the business does. So,
What are
that
some of
whole
those
piece
things?
about well, we just finished a 2-day exec. And Emma, our commercial director, she was talking about new listings that we'd won. I didn't know about them. She was talking to me about some competitive price changes in the marketplace. A couple of our competitors on granolas have put their prices up. I didn't know about that. It's and it pleases me because before, it was not like I was a one-man band, but we were probably 4 or 5 people back then, and we all knew everything. And now we've sort of grown the different parts of the business, and ops runs their part, finance runs theirs, marketing runs theirs. It's wonderful, and like seeing people grow, and that lovely word about delegation, where of course you delegate, and you've got to trust, but also there is that piece about trust is earned. So you know if we've got to trust people, they've got to prove it as well. Know their
When
game, know their numbers, know what they're talking about, so that they know more than I do. And it's brilliant. I mean, honestly, just and again, linking that, so to build the business to be valuable, you've got to run the team in the right way, which links back to purpose. The other thing I think, Dan, you've got to do is at some stage, and we are 6 years now, but you've got to move into profit. And not big profit, but if you want to be a sustainable business, that means two things. That's the environmental piece, and it's the financial piece. If we want to exist forever,
What have
if
you
we want to
done?
be
What have
able
you?
to
Yeah, but
create,
also linking that to the exit is like people want to see. Well, this is what Giles says.
yeah,
They want to see EBITDA now. So you need to start thinking about that. Say, let's not beat around the bush. You want an exit in 4, 5, 6 years. What have you been doing from a cost perspective, a team perspective, a marketing perspective, to dance the dance between growing your business and also making profit? Because that's a delicate dance.
it is a delicate dance, and I'll come on and answer your question, Dan, in a sec. But it really is important because Megan wants to deliver the best gut health products to consumers. You can't lose money forever. You can't keep selling equity forever. So if we're going to keep delivering those, you do need to move into
When you
profit.
say selling
And
equity, is that raising money?
Yeah, shares, exactly. So for the first 5 years when we lost money, we funded that by selling shares in the company, selling equity.
Right.
And now we haven't done that for about 2.5 years, and we moved into profit halfway through last year. Not, but small profit. Like, so all the extra margin we make, we want to invest into growth, into marketing, into the team, etc. But just enough so that we are now in the black, a sustainable business. We can keep going forwards. And I tell you, one of the things that pleased me the most, because I thought the team might be, because we're completely open with the team about it all, I thought they might be a bit, oh no, I'm not going to have as much to spend on marketing, or I'm not going to have enough to spend on MPD or whatever, with the customers, whatever it might be. Actually, they loved it because they get it. They're like, of course, like it's fine in an investment phase to raise funds and then invest and lose money for X number of years. But they know that to be a real business, you do need to move into the black at some point. So, and it means for them, it's sustainable. Their jobs are more secure. And that at that level, they were really, really into it. It was wonderful. So, if you are listening,
So what did you do to get it profitable then?
yeah, sorry, I'm taking a long time to answer your question, aren't
That's
I?
all good.
So growing really helps, and I think one of the things I've enjoyed over the last few years. I know, Dan, we had a chat about co-mans before, but as you scale, working with your co-man partners, because they've taken a big
Just
risk on you.
co-man's co-manufacture co-man's co
Co-manufacturers,
yeah.
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 So all the different products we make through expert manufacturers, some down in Dorset, some in Snowdonia, some up in Yorkshire. Um, and as you grow, that enables everybody to buy packaging cheaper, ingredients cheaper, run longer, more efficient shifts. So working out how the benefits of that, some of it comes to us so that, during all this time of inflation, we haven't had to put cost prices through like competition had to. Some of it goes to the co-man to reward them because, I think one thing founders sometimes forget, but those co-manufacturers are they take some of the biggest risks on you. I remember our very first granola manufacturer, he put all that time and effort in based on just meeting Megan and myself. He went about 70 grand into the red. If we'd gone pop after the first 2 or 3 months, he'd have put so much time and so much money in. So, they
How did
deserve
you
a
convince him
reward
to put
as
that?
well.
How did you convince him to put that much money in?
Oh, Dan, it was me and Megan, wasn't it? Of course. And he could see, I don't know. I tell you what I did do. I got in my car and drove down to see him. And I think, just good old fashioned going and meeting people. We had a recipe, we took him the recipe, he talked to us about how he could improve it. It is a very personal relationship. And I think, yeah, I mean, love your co-manufacturer, as I say. So working with them in order to share the benefits of growth really helps. On the customer side, we invest a lot with customers on customer specific MPD. We invest a lot in kind of in-store activation. But one thing we've been able to reduce is our promotions. So as our rate of sales gone up, you can reduce the percentage we spend on in promotions each year, whether that's doing a few less promotions or shallower promotions, so the discount is less deep. Finessing that. It's one of the things Giles Brooke, who's our chair, he's very hot on. Is there is if not millions of pounds, there's hundreds of thousands of pounds there in terms of costs to the business.
What are the other little things you can finesse? Because what size what size is the brand now, if you don't mind me asking?
20 million.
20 million. Okay, so fuck me, that's insane. So what are the other so I like the idea of just being very supple and delicate with how you do more promotions, less promotions,
Yeah.
more shallow ones. The co-manufacturer, like sharing the money with them, having them on board. What are the other little fine things that you've just picked up through experience?
So one that we haven't done, but people can think about is adjusting your products over time. So I think shrinkflation is a famous thing, but we've seen quite a lot of brands who are in smaller packs right now. So that is an option. We've chosen not to do it. But
I swear that's just conning the customer, though.
I mean,
or the consumer. In my head, it is.
I mean, you're faced, with. I mean, if we think back again over the last 4 years, Dan, our cost of goods have gone up about 30 to 40%. Think back to the energy crisis, the Ukraine war. I had no idea quite how important Ukraine was to the world economy in terms of grains, etc. It's put a lot of brands, including us, in a very difficult position. Now we were lucky because we were growing so damn fast. We've gone from like 2-3 million to 20. Huge economies of scale that meant we could offset. But honestly, I don't know. Would a consumer rather spend £1 a pack more or have a pack that was 15-20% smaller? There are real choices there to be made. What you shouldn't do is hide it. If you do need to go smaller, you need to be transparent about that. But
I like the idea of honest marketing. Fuck boring workshops. Introducing Hungary's 10x Challenger Brand Workshops. 10x creativity beats 10x budgets. Bringing the poddy from your headphones to real life rich learning. They're absolutely banging. I've chinwagged with some of the best Challenger brands in the world. Innocent, Vita Coco, Tony's Chocolonely, Bold Bean, Brewdog, and Bear More. And some of the greatest marketing minds in the world. Seth Godin, Rory Sutherland, Sir John Hegarty, the absolute Donnies. My boy James Hicks and I have created 3 absolutely banging workshops. The best storyteller wins a banging copywriting workshop. 10x and unleash your creative inner being. New business Donnies using creativity to absolutely sell and close new business. We've run these for Naked Wines, Vita Coco, and Corson Press. They all absolutely loved it. Each workshop is littered with a luscious mix of hand-picked, delectable and delicious goods, pastries, croissants, and loads more. You'll feel like a pampered guest at Hungry Hotel of Creativity. If you're interested and you're interested for your team, please DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram. It's like honest marketing is it's a James Smith thing, which is being just brutally honest with your consumers. And then again, I've talked about it with Rory, and there was a restaurant in where we did one of the supper clubs actually down in Bristol, Sunny Stores. The guy's a legend, and he put an email on his newsletter, being like, "It's the last thing I want to do, but we are moving to like, you know, pay on your phone with the QR code, which I think is the most, you know, hideous thing you can do in a restaurant. It kills every little smidge of soul." But he was honest, and he sent it to his newsletter and was like, "This is the situation, mate. We're doing this.
And why
did
he do it? Do you remember?
Because hospitality, obviously the podcast kind of straddles both FMCG and hospitality, but basically hospitality is a raving shit show at the minute, in the sense that there's just no money in it at all, like literally no money in it.
Lower staff
so lower staff costs, and actually, you know, again, it's like, that's why I was saying these subtle things, because it's do you have more staff and then buy less quality produce? You know, so it's that constant thing. I love that. So promotion finesse, shrinkflation finesse. What other finesse?
I mean, you can look at, if you work your way down the P&L. I mean, you know, so we've done price increases, we've done you know, pack sizing. You know, you can change your ingredients. You know, Mark. One thing we have done, you know, so Mark, who's our COO, you know, he relentlessly searches the globe for different suppliers of the ingredients to the standards we need. So in each of our products, we've got about 15 different nuts, seeds, fruits, etc. So, you know, he's endlessly sort of scouring around trying to find. So changing your suppliers. I hate to say it, suppliers, but you know, sometimes you have to do that. We've done that on packaging. You know, that is just the relentless grind. We did take a look at transport, but crikey, you know, all the energy, etc. You know, just try saving money there. It's very, very difficult. So those are the main areas. And then as you grow, of course, if you look at the team costs, so we've increased our team a lot. I think I said we're up to about 18 people now. But as a percentage on the P&L, because we've grown sales faster, it's coming down. So you're becoming more and more efficient. But growing the team, both in terms of investing in training, growing the size. So we plan to bring another 6 people in this year. We've just brought in 3 new people. You know, that's how we grow. You know, we need to do more, and that means we need more people.
The Giles, vividly, I remember him saying that you know, the size of team can be a swinging dick contest when you go around lunch. It's like, we were at 40 people.
Used to be.
And Giles, Giles was saying to me, mate, he was like, you know, if I've seen, I think he said £60 million businesses with 8 people. I've seen £60 million businesses with, these numbers maybe slightly off, like 70 people. And he was like, and he used you guys as a darling example of how you keep costs down.
Did he?
When you're based
nice
Well, no, he was just saying, like, you know, there's, again, the whole thing with this in Challenger Brands is, I think there's this Shoreditch House-ification of brand building, where it's like, you want to go into Shoreditch House, say you've got an office in Shoreditch, wear your fedora hat, tell people how big your team is, but you're not actually making any profit, and it's just all gumph. Whereas Giles was like, look, why don't you go, like you guys based up in Chester, you know, what is AU Vodka are based out in Wales, Sauce Shop based in Nottingham. The overheads are much cheaper, and as you say, it's that percentage of revenue is fascinating. What were the crucial hires or surprising hires that took you from 2 million when we last spoke to 20 million now? Like, what were the 1 or 2 that had a massive impact?
Oh, I mean, I'm not sure it is 1 or 2, Dan, but I mean, it is sort of the obvious ones. So we have increased our sales team a lot. So this gives me a great chance to big up a few members of the team, doesn't it? But Emma and the sales team, you know, that's now the largest team in the business, and you'd want it to be, you know, at our stage. And I think because we've got this whole broad product range, so we've got our granolas and our porridge pots and our overnight oats and our bars, which are all ambient, long shelf life products. And then we've got our kefirs, which are yogurts and drinks in the chiller. they're completely different buyers, completely different supply chains, completely different competitors. So for a salesperson to try and think about both categories is quite difficult to be as close as like a brand that just makes one category, one product. So we've sort of we've created a team of chilled specialists and serial ambient specialists, and that's really working for us. So
Interesting. I just on that. So Giles said to me, and this was 2 years ago now, or last year, was with innovation, innovate close to the core.
mhm.
So for example, always innovate close to the core range. The example he gave was when Innocent tried to exit to Coca-Cola, and they built all these veg pot, all the soup businesses, which is now
Oh
gone.
yeah, it just became
Yeah, and he
bold.
was like, well, he goes, yeah, which became bowl. And he was like, the biggest lesson from that is innovate close to the core. If you're going to innovate, do a different flavor of peanut butter, do a different flavor of granola, do a different flavor of beer. Because when you go to exit, that's people want to buy that. He gave the example of Lotus, who bought Bear, whatever it is. And he was like, they're only interested in the fruit rolls. All the other parts of the business, they weren't interested. So you're a
I
granola
think the same. I
business.
think it's true.
Yeah, so if you're a granola business, surely it's how come you're going into a different categories in fresh or chilled with different buyers, different consumers? Like, what's the why and the
Yeah.
thinking behind that?
So funnily enough, I it sounds like a list of my recent talks, Dan, but I did one at the Tesco Accelerator event a couple of weeks ago. And we should talk
Yeah,
about the role of customers and like amazing what they've been doing. And they asked me to talk about cross-category growth, so brands going into other categories. And basically, my first slide was don't. Unless you absolutely have to, or I'll say it positively. If you can achieve all of your hopes and dreams, the scale, the vision for your brand, if you can do all of that through one category, you will make your life so much simpler, way more efficient. Back to purpose and valuation. If you can do your purpose through that one category, you will probably drive it to a higher valuation. For just like you were saying about Giles' example with Bear Snacks. But for us, it was strategically critical to be in two categories. So without doing too much science, this is really Dr. Megan's area. But you, Dan, Dan, the human being, there are two things you need to do for your gut health. One of which is eat more diverse fiber, and it's fiber that's really having its moment right now. So, and that the fiber, the different plant fibers, go into your tummy, they get broken down and they then feed the bacteria inside your stomach. And it's
yeah,
most simple, and that has all the associated health benefits, physical, mental, the gut-brain axis, etc. And that's what the fiber does. That's what our cereals and our bars does. And then there are fermented products. So in our case, kefir, which have the live and active bacteria in them. So this is where you can sort of top up the bacteria inside you with specific live and active cultures that are known to give specific health benefits. So that's what's in our kefirs. So if we want to be the leading UK health brand, if that's our purpose, we've kind of got to be in both. We've got to be both feeding the bacteria and topping them up. But that's
mm.
enough.
So
I don't want to
that
go into
links.
any.
So just quickly, so that links again. I love nuance, right? So that links to what we were saying at the beginning: purpose, brand purpose with
Yeah.
exit, and so it's like, okay, if we are going to go cross category, is this right for our consumer? Is that's essentially what you're saying? So if you were to go into fucking, I don't know, like I'm trying to think, like butter or something like that is just that's too much of a crazy distraction. But if it aligns with your consumer's shopper mission, i.e., they're going to go in and they may be buying. You may be able to see from the data that pre you launching kefir that they were going and buying Bio&Me granola and then X other brand kefir. So you're like, we may as well go there. Is that essentially what you're saying?
I think there may be a slightly different way of looking at it. Maybe I think in terms of going back to purpose, if that whole thing for us to be, you know,
No, sorry,
uh,
I get the purpose. I get the purpose bit, but I mean, where I'm trying to sort of bridge this on is how you looked at it through a commercial lens. Because as you
right.
said, yeah, exactly.
So I think the choice of which categories we went into came from our
Yeah.
purpose. Then once you've decided to go into those two, then you've got to decide, right, how am I going to win? So what's the consumer looking for in granola? What's the consumer looking for in kefir? What can we do better than our competitors? Is it around flavors? Is it around health? What is going to give us, what's going to justify our space on shelf? Because we can't just turn up and be the same as somebody else. We're if we're going to be the best at something, if we're going to have a small but justifiable premium because of our ingredients, you've got to be doing something better. So I think that's where the consumer piece comes in. The choice of categories, I think, is more internal purpose driven. Like, what are we all about? That's our choice. But then, when you go there, yeah, it's like, what is the consumer looking for in those categories?
And how did you make sure you were better and different?
I think that's probably where Megan comes. Well, from a health point of view, that's where Megan comes in. So she will all, this is where, and I love, all the research that's coming through, all the science pointing in the same direction. She says very similar, not exactly the same, very similar to what Tim Spector and the other science. They're all based on science and the research. So she brings that. So in the case of our granolas, we have more different plant-based fibers than anybody else. We've got about 15, others have about 6 or 7. It's that sort of level. On the kefirs, we have more live and active cultures. We've got about 400 billion in ours. Others have between about 30 to 100. So we just have more. So you work it through from the gut health science point of view, but then in truth, the consumer sort of expects that, and they know Megan's done the hard work there. What they want to know is, does it taste nice? And that's Dan. We talked about this before, but if you're going to be a health brand, you've got to get that balance right between, people will try you because they want the new benefit, the gut health benefit, but they'll keep coming back because you taste nice. Food should be a pleasure. If you make people compromise on taste, you'll lose them. I mean, you'll keep a very small group of consumers who are prepared to compromise, but most don't want to. They want the taste and the health at the same time.
And what's the art of managing cross categories across multiple retailers? Anything you could speak to that?
Bloody hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I think we jumped on this part of the conversation because I was saying how we'd sort of almost not quite, but sort of split the sales team in two to have team chilled and team ambient, and that's really helped. And that's allowed them to be really close to their group of buyers. And I mean, again, Dan, it's helpful thinking about this over the last 4 years. My gosh, have the retailers got into challenger brands over the last 4 or 5 years? I think before that, talking to some of the buyers who have been in position for quite a long time, they had a real nervousness around challenger brands because they were being let down on a supply point of view all the time, and brands were making big promises, but there was really only a
Yeah.
very small number who delivered. The innocents, like
Yeah.
you were talking earlier, Goose, Charlie Bigham's. Whereas now, I think they realize challenger brands, we're delivering the growth and they can help them differentiate. So, my gosh, have they swung? Sainsbury's had the Future Brands program, Tesco, the Accelerator, Ocado, Roots. I've just become a Roots champion, actually. I'm really excited about it. Out of home, Breaks are doing their programs, the Accelerate, Co-op's got the Apiary. It's brilliant. Like, oh my gosh, has
Yeah,
their
I mean, it's
pendulum
the
swung? Oh,
I read a thing the other day saying, well, I've written a piece about it called, and it's a quote by Morgan Housel, who wrote The Psychology of Money, and like I think there's the other one, Some Things Never Change or something, really good book. And he goes, you can only understand the golden ages in retrospect. So it's like, in
mm,
we may look back at the 80s in New York, and like that was the period everyone made loads of money. We may look
yeah,
back at the in the oils of the 1900s, when everyone was making money in oils. I believe in 200 years time, people look back and be like, especially in the UK, this was the greatest time to build a challenger brand. Do you know what I mean? As we
yeah.
look back at the 90s
I
and say that was the best time for like sort of Brit pop and music. Music's gone dead, and that's why it really winds me up. And people are like, oh, it's so hard. I'm like, mate, it's never been easier. 20 years ago, you didn't have LinkedIn to just DM a buyer. 10 years ago, you didn't have any of these. I mean, when I started Money Life, which was 10 years ago now, there was no none of these programs. There wasn't these communities. You know, it's really hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's never been easier. And I feel like if you just think, well, this is the golden time, this is the golden age, you just become way more positive. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, it's one of my favorite things. It's why I was at Bread and Jam last week, and then the Tesco event, and here, like, it is astonishing. It's almost, it's ridiculously brilliant quite how supportive the startup community is. I mean, look at what you're doing, Dan. Like, how far you've come in the last few years. Like, the amount people are so open. Like, I mean, I'm telling all my secrets today, but like, people just they go a lot. Other founders. I mean, I know the unfounders. Like, then there's ops ones, and people are just really, really trying to help each other, because I think the startup, challenger brand, scaling brand, whatever, they know you get far more from helping each other than you do by sort of dragging each other down. It's amazing.
Founders, cash is literally king. If you don't have cash in your business, you are going bust, mate. Imagine you've landed a banging retailer, or you've got a brand new bit of MPD going live. Suppliers need paying today, but the cash won't hit your bank account for 3 months. It's a headache wrapped in a nightmare, and that's why I'm delighted to announce we are partnering with Mimo, short for money in, money out. Mimo automates your finances, streamlines workflows, and keeps your books up to date. But the real hero here, the absolute Don, is Mimo Flex, flexible working capital built into your finance workflow. With Mimo Flex, you can draw what you need when you need it and repay as receivables land. Use it to keep inventory moving, fund campaigns, or negotiate better supplier terms. You could apply for a revolving line of up to 1 million, and you only pay month to month on what you've actually used. It's insane. Credit subject to eligibility and status, fees and terms do apply. Listen, your favourite challenger brands literally love Mimo. Surreal, Hunter and Gatherer, Nice Wine, Better Nature Tempeh, and tons more. Learn more and apply at mimohq.com. This guy who owns Bocca di Lupo, banging Italian in London, he's like part of the Cambridge tech community. He's like a billionaire Don, and he basically said it's the idea of competition. So it's competition and cooperation together. And I feel like you're against each other, but you're also actually helping each other out. I noticed this when we did a supper club. Low Rise Beer sat right next to Local Beer, my two mates. They're having a chocolate pudding and a couple of beers. They're literally competitors, but they're having jokes and banter. Like, it's so sick. Yeah. On the secrets, so we've done the fine finesses of how you made profit by cutting costs.
Yeah. Stop losing money.
What are the big 1 to 3 levers you did to hit 20 mil? First thing. Second thing, what are the subtle finesse nuances that helps you hit 20 mil? Let's start with sort of the big rocks, then we can move to the pebbles.
Oh, Dan, you don't ask half some questions.
Sorry.
I mean, here's what comes into my mind. So I suppose number one is our ranges. So if thinking back 4 years ago, we probably had about, 8, 9, 10 SKUs. We've now got over 40. So, getting that range done, has undoubtedly been a big part of our growth. I think, honestly, one of the best bits of advice I can just love your customers and get really close to your customers. We have had such support, and to Emma and the sales team's credit, honestly, I think we've just worked very, very hard. I might say harder than it is a bit of a competition. So, in order to get great results to the retailer so that they want to support us, it's a virtuous circle if you get it right. And we've worked really hard at that. And I would say to early startups, focus on that more than pure play marketing.
So when just that's, let's walk into the sort of fields of nuance here. The I don't know, core play marketing versus getting close to your customer? How are they different?
Yeah. So I think probably the easiest way to explain it is I would just stay as close to the point of sale as you possibly can at the start. So anything you can do to influence your rate of sale, build your brand at the point of sale is going to be more efficient at the start. Whereas the further away you go, so billboards, TV, radio, social media. Well, social can sort of you can get very close to point of purchase as well, but the further away you go from the point of purchase, the bigger the brand you really need to be already in order
Mm,
to make that work. So with our marketing, which would be the third big lever, which is led by Mike, that's we stayed really, really close. So, one of the things we love the most is when we can do what are they called? Free FSDUs, free standing display units, the big bits of cardboard that you can put your stock in, because that lets you do an advert on one side and your stock in the middle. I mean, that is the dream startup marketing, where if you can do
and
that,
you're
you
getting
know,
secondary space as well.
yeah, I mean,
It's
just
like it's like
incredible.
a
But
triple whammy. What's so okay? So this is super
those are
interesting.
Dan. Sorry, when you talk about nuances and money, do you know what, like, a couple of hundred of those costs, like, or if you want to get into 300-400 Tesco's, just what the cardboard costs about 15,000-20,000 pounds. Like, it's mad how much they cost. So that's a big investment, but you'll get it back because of the incremental sales. Whereas if you do 20,000 pounds worth of billboards around London, maybe, but on the other hand, maybe not.
Mm, okay, this is beautiful. So proximity to purchase is a big rock. Any other big rocks?
Hmm. So we've done ranging, we've done sales, staying close to your customers, and I think number three is the marketing investment, but keep it as close to the point of sale. I don't know if we call it sort of almost like it's like almost sort of performance marketing versus pure brand building. I
Yeah.
heard the I've forgotten his name rather embarrassingly, but the founder from Olipop in the States. He probably being a bit provocative, but he was saying you shouldn't be doing consumer, pure play broadcast media until you're over 100 million. Really, it's more like
Mm,
to you use one set of tactics to build the brand and then another set of tactics to maintain it. And that
mm.
broad scale media is almost more maintenance than it is building.
Maintenance versus building. That's such a gorgeous way of putting it. The
Yeah, it
so
wasn't
sorry,
my
just
line.
quickly. Yeah, yeah, no, but anyway, fuck it. I mean, everything's bastardized, isn't it? I think it's a David Bowie quote. The only art I'll ever study is the art I can steal off. Everything's fucking
Well, I tell you
remixed.
what, I should credit him now because I'm lucky enough. One of our investors, he's an old Procter and Gamble friend of mine, but Greg Jackson from Octopus Energy, and he was talking to me. Actually, he was talking to me about people and the kinds of people you build, you bring in who build brands versus maintain them. Whether it's on the finance or the sales or the operations, or whatever
Mm.
it might marketing, whatever it might be, the people who build are different to the ones who then maintain. It's a different mindset.
The 100%. So okay, and then so sorry, it's late in the day. I'm a little bit tired.
Sorry about that,
So we
Dan.
said yeah. Well, it may not sound like it, but my eyes are a bit fucked. Um, so yeah, so we said, and then just go back to the proximity of purchase. Totally get when you said getting closer to the customer. That
Yep.
specifically, that is just being closer to the buyer. That is being understanding what their goals
Um,
are. Is that creating more
yeah.
specific MPD for them, or is it what is that?
Yeah, I think at the start, the truth is it probably is all about your buyer.
Yeah.
Buyer and supply chain, just, a little love to supply chain people goes a long way. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And getting that right and not letting people down on that is hugely important. But then I think we've learned over the years the benefits of extending your network inside the customers. So, the ranging people. So, the buyer will decide which brands to have, but the ranging person will decide which stores to go into, etc. And the
Mm,
demographics, yeah, you'll remember it's really, really, our rates of sale are incredibly different. There'll be some stores where we'll sell 60, 70 packs of granola a week, and others where we'll sell, three or four. It's incredible. I did not understand the differences. It's amazing. Um, so ranging people are really important. Merchandising people who do sort of the in-store point of sale, even finance people, and also, getting to know some more senior people. We've been lucky enough to meet some of the directors. I think most customers are really good at, they empower the buyers, the teams, the commercial teams, they make the decisions, but having the strategic support of more senior people, directors, really helps. Just knowing that they're there, they've got the support, they understand, the gut health journey, the importance for them. Megan goes in and does talks to sort of for the staff and for, and often, like at a director's summer away days or something like that. And it's
yeah.
really helpful to have their support.
Amazing. So those are sort of the big rocks. What are some of the nuances or fine tuning in brand or the brand building stage, which has helps you get, because people say getting to 5 million is hard, then it's to 10, but to do 20 million in 5 years is pretty wild. Like, any specific
Yeah.
learnings on that?
We obsess about our packaging a lot. I remember, I think it was Barney or Jason from Fuel 10K, but you know, I think he told me they iterated their packaging about 20 times. They just refined it and refined it and refined it. And we do that a lot. I've also subtly popped some behind me, but we're probably on to about version 10. And I know each time we sort of make a tweak, it's a lot of work for the team to do the changeovers, etc. So, but each time you're just refining the messaging a bit, and you know your packaging is your greatest piece of marketing. It really is. The
Mm,
front of pack to get the selling messages there, the side of pack to tell your story. It really, really matters. So
mm.
honestly, yeah, we probably changed it 11 or 12 times already. just refining, refining, refining.
Yeah.
So
But I
I
love
love
it how
that.
it's like a game. What you're the picture you're painting. And it's what I loved about Money Life is it's literally a game of inches and 1% that compound. Those little bits of
Mm,
packaging, that very subtle dance of, the how often you do the promotions. Are they shallow? Do you manage to blag a coffee or a meeting with someone senior? Do you get in with, it's just all these little things and it's just that constant fighting at the edge which pushes you forward. Since we last spoke, what are some of the surprising lessons or ways you've had to change, sort of personally or as a leader?
Oh golly. I'll tell you some of the hardest decisions, which sort of links a bit business to people, and then because I think the hardest decisions are always around people. Is we were talking about co-manufacturers earlier, and and that first co-manufacturer I was talking about, the sad truth is, we outgrew them, and I hadn't really foreseen that, and I hadn't really understood that there'd come a point where that person who's been so important to you at the start, it's about I always compare things to relationships. I was never very good on the relationship side of things, Dan, and it's like breaking up with somebody. Honestly, it's they're very hard conversations to say. It's not, and it is the old, it's not me, it's you. But
How do you
but
prep
I
that
I found
conversation?
those hard.
How do you prep that conversation?
Uh, sometimes we did it well, sometimes we did it badly. Again, I've always get in my car and go and see the person because, or at least where I can, because I think, there's I don't, maybe it's a bit old fashioned, but, a bit of respect to go and see them as opposed to just, give them a phone call or drop them an email or whatever. So where I can, I'll go there. But in truth, we've probably changed. If I just think back, I think across all our products, we've probably changed the co-manufacturers we've gone just simply because of, well, scale, sometimes quality. A couple of times we had, I mean, there's one company that now sadly doesn't exist anymore, where they just couldn't get the quality right, and we tried and we tried and we tried, but ultimately we had to move on. But most of the time it's because of scale, which is a nice reason to have to move if you like. But it is, I get a bit emotional about these things. So that was, that's one of the big things. I think with the team, I think we're probably, I hope, not all down to me in any stretch, but one of the nice things about when you set up your company, Dan, is you can do it the way you want to. I loved working at Procter and Gamble and Nestle and all those places, but those were companies that have been going for decades and decades, if not hundreds of years. So the culture was set, their ways of doing things were set. Whereas age 48, we could set Bio&Me up in what I felt was the right way, with a white sheet of paper, like completely clean. And and I think most of that is working, but there's still more that we can do. There's stresses and strains in the business that I'd love to be able to smooth out. I'm sure some members of the team are happier than others. I'd love to be able to sort that out. But the truth is, and I think this is talked about in the community, Dan, but you might know better than me. It is hard work, and I know there's a bit more truth maybe being spoken on LinkedIn, but as well as sort of your sort of Hoxton Shoreditch analogy, I think a lot of people kind of like to pretend, all you have to do is a few LinkedIn posts and off you go. And it is not like that. It is incredibly hard work. I mean, it really is.
What's the incredibly hard work that most people don't understand?
I think probably the intensity of it. I work probably shorter hours than I did at Nestle, but it's more intense.
What will you work? Do you work 7 days a week?
I used to when we started, probably for about the first 18 months. Then I got it down to 6, and now it's probably about 5.5. So yeah, I'd say about 5.5. But I get in at 8:30, and I'm home to have kids. Kids home to have dinner with my kids. I don't eat my
have
kids.
a nice fruity evening.
Exactly. We always seem to have supper around 6 o'clock, and I'm home for then. It's only in Chester small.
But then are you doing work into the evening?
Sometimes I've got my laptop when watching TV with the girls in the evening, but
no, because I think it's important, because I feel like work-life balance is a myth, and I feel like it's and again, it's like people need to see that to get to 20 mil, you do need to do 7 days a week, and that's why I like how open and honest, Perfect Ted are. It's like no, this is like we're always working. Because I think there is just, it's the intensity of it, and just the because I find out with this is a 24/7 full, and I've spoken to other podcasters who are ahead, and it's like, no, this is a constant on. Like, you can still be present and see your mates, but like I'll be editing on a Sunday to get the podcast out. So I wanted to try and not sugarcoat it. If like, I switch off and play chess or whatever. Like, it is that relentlessness of it. What else would you say
for good and bad, Dan? It is a competition, and if not for consumers, then for space on shelf or whatever it might be. And competition does drive you on, but it does drive you. Like, you've got to be very driven for it. And you're right.
Yeah, 100%. What did you? So that was so it sort of the intensity of it. What other hard decisions did you have to make to unlock the £20 million growth? Because I think you're the sum of the hard decisions you make, and that's saying no, going back a few steps. Like, what were those?
I'm quite bad at saying no, Dan. I'm not sure prioritization is one of my big areas. I mean, I when you say it, honestly, there's nothing particularly, the big three drivers you asked me about earlier. That's what we focused on. Our MPD plan, a lot of it, when you asked about customers earlier, has been driven through the customers. We find out what the buyers want, so we focus on that. That makes a lot of sense. First time you've asked me a question, I'm drawing a blank. There's nothing
it's all good.
That comes to mind.
Interesting. So when you say, it's interesting. So we had the consumer piece for the kefir and the products, and the granolas. So you
Yeah,
ask the customer what they want for MPD. So say Waitrose versus Sainsbury's, and then we'll wrap this up after this because I know you've got to pick up kids. But like,
I do.
so you'll ask the buyer what they want. How do you make the decision between doing what's right for the buyer versus what's right for the consumer? Because they're again slightly different things.
Yeah, well, here's an example. Customer I haven't mentioned so far, Waitrose. So, and it goes back to Giles's theory about innovate close to your core. So, granola. We flipping love granola, and our expertise is in how to make it, the best for gut health. But especially when you're small, the buyer, the retailer has got far more data around flavors and flavor choices and which flavors their shoppers prefer. So, Waitrose came to us, maybe 18 months ago, maybe more recently. They wanted a ginger one because ginger is particularly strong in Waitrose. It's one
Oh
of
wow!
theirs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's fantastic because they're an amazing retailer. That's the flavor they wanted, so we'd do a specific one for them. Yes, of course. Same for Tesco, same for Sainsbury's, etc. Because they've each got their particular flavor profiles, and we'll do bespoke. So it's exactly like Giles is saying. It's really close to the core, same factory, same lot of very similar ingredients, but just tweaked for the individual
What about the
shoppers, individual
bars? What about
customers.
the bars? What about the bars?
Same. I mean, we've only just started on bars, so
Right.
we've just relaunched them. By the way, Dan, we had pure fiber oat bars before. We've now gone out. Very complex around VAT. VAT rules get in the way, so we've now got a sort of fiber and protein bar, bringing the two benefits together, and that's really flying. So now we can
Mm.
start to get into some more flavors for customers, etc. It's really cool.
What would you say since 2 million, when we last spoke, to 20 million, are the three biggest mistakes you've made?
Oh God. I Three biggest mistakes. Right, what comes to my mind? We changed our porridge pots. We had vegan porridge pots that were in plastic, and we went to milk based that were in paper. And sorry, paper pot manufacturers, but they just didn't work. The lids didn't stick to the paper properly, etc. We had terrible damages, etc. So that was
And
not
so
good.
the mistake there was cost in wastage, consumer.
All
what
of
was
it,
the
all
scar
of it.
tissue off that? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that
Next one.
took us a while. Probably not investing enough in marketing early enough. I think if I applied hindsight, would I have grown the marketing team and put a bit more money into the marketing plan earlier? It's a debate every company has, and we go round and round and round. We're just getting the courage to invest more now. So you might have
Is
seen
that trade? Is that trade marketing, or is that more as you say, the traditional brand building
both,
playbook? So,
both,
okay,
both.
interesting. Where would you have spent
We've
it
just
if you
got
had your time again?
probably close to the customer, but even more. Sort of creating
Right.
some of those amazing in-store displays. I saw,
Yeah.
to credit them, Moju did a lovely with the co-op. They did a lovely. It was with the Spinados, the children's charity. It's really brilliant. But my gosh, the in-store standout. So again, brilliant equity driving in store. I think would have invested even more into that. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, but we'd have done that. Um, Also, I think during the cost of living, when inflation was at its peak, we froze the team growth, and we froze it for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And we had to, and I think we deliberately chose a strategy, sort of waiting until the people were about to go pop. Your point, Dan. People used to brag about big teams. Now it's about who's got the most efficient team. But I think probably
Yes.
in a
Interesting.
couple of areas, especially
Hmm.
on operations, we left it too long. We should have brought people in earlier, but But it's not to get my violin out, but it's a big thing bringing creating a new role, bringing someone in. You've got to be really certain the role is there. You've got the money to pay for it. You don't want to bring people in on a false promise and bring them in and then let them go. So I think we were sort of right to be cautious, but we were probably a bit too cautious.
Final thing, mate. We sat in when, many moons ago, feels like yesterday, 2 million. What are some of the things you've radically changed your mind on now we're at 20 million? Like a pre-held belief, and when we were here, now we're up here. What have you changed your mind on?
Oh God, Dan. I've got a terrible feeling that the answer to that question is not very much. I feel like I, I mean, we haven't changed around what we're all about. Going back to our conversation at the start in terms of purpose and consumers, we haven't changed our mind on how we run the team. We haven't changed our mind on trying to run the business. By the way, Dan, we're not, I don't sort of like be waving a for sale sign. We've got a lot more to do, etc. But I think just having, being honest and having a mind of like we're trying to both be the best at this, and at some point, like all other brands, we want to find the right home for us. I'm 53. Is you're just being honest with the team, honest with investors, honest with everybody. So I think trying to run that business that right way and getting to break even was really important. I think perhaps one thing I underestimated was how important our customers are. I just honestly that whole piece we talked about in terms of God how they've got behind us and supported us. So not changed my mind on that, probably grown on that. God, what should I have changed my mind on?
Well, no, it's interesting. Like, I think the underestimate me is maybe a more nuanced way of asking that question. But I think the thing you said about the retailers, and I think there's a common narrative for brands to slam the retailers. I think Giles talks about this.
Oh,
It's like it's this David versus Goliath bollocks, and it's like, okay, you can slag them off all you want, mate, but like they open the keys to distribution, and if you want, go to Australia, go to Ireland, go to America. Like we have the best grocery system in the world, and we've got
and
so many
I
retailers.
honestly, buyers are. I know there are some brands who they're pretty somewhere between aggressive and entitled in their comms to the buyers. I don't think they understand. Buyers spend a lot of time on customer service and trying to make sure the big brands availability in store. The big brands will always do about 80-90% of sales. So guess what? They're going to devote 80-90% of their time there, and they should.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, we're the fun growth bit that then becomes serious once you get some scale. And if the buyer is not responding to you, it's not their fault. It's probably why is your message not right? Why is your message not landing? I'd have a look at what you're doing rather than criticize
Mm,
them. They can
completely agree.
spot trends. They've probably seen you, but they're busy. So I think you get a lot more get a lot further by being positively persistent, in a nice way than by criticizing because they've got a tough job and yeah,
Final
they're
thing. So I
busy.
know you've got to go. Just final thing. So how you're thinking about the valuation in the future? How do you think? How does that inform decisions you're making today? Like about the exit and timing. You said you got a long way to go. Like if you're at 20 million,
Just
you could exit. Like, do you know what I mean? You can still make a shitload of
oh,
dough.
we still got lots to do, but I mean, I think it starts at the top line and works its way down. So, probably the best example is this whole like getting to break even so that you are both environmentally and financially sustainable. That means you do need to look at your margins, so all those nuances that we were talking about, because, just throwing products out there that are never going to make money, that's a fool's game, and you're not going to get to your purpose that way. So,
Mm.
all that whole conversation we had about, the nuances of making your proposition, successful commercially, I think is, that's absolutely at the heart of it.
Mm. Mate, we'll wrap it up. Short but sweet, but super informative. And I know you've got to go on to dad duty now. But we
I
will catch
do.
up soon. And always a joy and mate, buzzing that you've had such a glorious speedy, climb. So congratulations.
You know what? But also, Dan, like the same back to you, because like, Lord knows how many followers Hungary had back then. But now, I mean, now look at you, like you're mixing with the present company accepted, the great and the good. Like it's amazing. I'm watching, and bit of awe, bit of pride, Dan. Maybe it's just amazing what you've done.
I really appreciate that, mate. Really do appreciate that. Sick. Nice one, brother. Right. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you were loving the episode. I'd appreciate a really small yet significant favor, por favor. Please, may you click the subscribe button, get in the comments, tell me what you think about the episode, tell me what you think we did on the show. It may not seem much, but it really helps us grow and helps us get bigger guests. Thank you so much.